The scent of rain on hot pavement was the first thing Maya noticed as she stepped off the bus, the humid Atlantic air a tangible weight after the sterile chill of the city. It was the smell of her childhood summers, of salt and seaweed, and the particular dampness that clung to the old clapboard houses of Port Haven. In her hand, her phone buzzed for the 10th time, the screen a mosaic of frantic texts from her brother, Daniel. "Daniel, Maya, we need to talk. It's about the beach house." The beach house. Everyone in the family called it that, capital letters implied, though it was a sagging, gray-shingled cottage on the less fashionable North Shore. To outsiders, it was a teardown. To their grandfather, Arthur, it had been a palace. Maya didn't call Daniel back. She walked the 12 familiar blocks, her wheeled suitcase clacking over uneven sidewalks, past Mrs. Henley's hydrangeas and Mr. Chen's bakery, its windows steamy with the late afternoon rush for sourdough. Her heart was a clenched fist. Daniel had been managing their grandfather's estate, such as it was, for the 3 years since Arthur's passing. The beach house, willed jointly to the two siblings, had been a point of quiet contention. Daniel saw a money pit, a useless relic. Maya saw... She wasn't sure what she saw anymore, a shell filled with echoes. She let herself into her grandmother's house, her house now, though she'd never think of it that way. The front hall was a symphony of familiar smells, lemon oil, simmering garlic, and the faint, forever scent of Granddad's pipe tobacco, woven into the very fibers of the floral wallpaper. "In here, lovey," Nana Rosa's voice, cracked but strong, floated from the kitchen. Maya found her at the ancient gas stove, stirring a pot of marinara, the tick-tick-tick of the ignition a steady metronome. At 82, Rosa was a small, bird-like woman, with hands that were a map of blue veins and faded henna stains. She moved with a deliberate, careful grace, each action a ritual. "You're just in time. The sauce needs a critic." Rosa held out a wooden spoon. Maya leaned in, blew, and tasted. It was perfect, bright with summer tomatoes, deep with basil, sharp with a secret pinch of red pepper. A taste that meant home, safety, you are loved here. "It's wonderful, Nana." Rosa studied her face, her eyes the color of worn sea glass. "You've got the storm in you. What's Daniel done?" Maya's composure cracked. She sank into a vinyl kitchen chair, the one with the duct-taped tear. "He sold it, the beach house. He found a buyer, a developer," he said, "and he signed the papers. He says it's a done deal. He didn't even ask me." The words hung in the air, mixing with the steam from the pot. Rosa's stirring didn't falter. "I see," she said softly. "And what did you say to him?" "Nothing. I couldn't speak. My throat ached. It's not about the money, Nana, you know that. It's just, he had no right. It was Granddad's. It was ours." Rosa turned off the flame. The sudden silence was heavy. "Come," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "We'll eat soon, but first we take a walk." The path to the North Shore was overgrown, the crushed oyster shells crunching underfoot. The sky was the color of a bruise, purple and yellow at the edges. As the cottage came into view, Maya's breath hitched. It looked smaller, more forlorn than ever. The "for sale" sign was already down. A fresh, raw, sold sticker was slapped across the listing plaque. "He couldn't even wait," Maya whispered, the first hot tears spilling over. Rosa slipped a cool, dry hand into hers. "Your grandfather bought this land in 1959 for $500, back wages from a fishing boat. Everyone said he was a fool. 'Arthur, that's just bog and bramble,' they said. 'Nothing will ever come of that shore.'" They picked their way through the beach grass to the rickety porch. Maya pushed the door open. It groaned in familiar protest. The inside was a time capsule of familiar floral sofa cushions, a formica table gritty with sand, and the pervasive, comforting smell of mildew and old books. On the wall, a framed map of the coast, annotated in Arthur's precise hand, hung slightly crooked. He didn't see a resort, Rosa said, running a finger along the dusty mantelpiece. He saw a place where his children could learn to swim, where he could teach your father to dig for clams without cutting his feet on the sharp rocks over on the public beach. He saw a refuge. Maya remembered. She remembered Granddad's large, calloused hands guiding hers as she knotted a fishing line. Remembered the epic Monopoly games on this porch during summer rain, the board held down with smooth gray stones. Remembered Daniel, 10 years old, building an elaborate sand fortress, declaring himself king of his own domain. For a moment, the memory was so vivid she could smell the copper tone and the rain-charged air. Daniel only sees what's in front of him, Rosa sighed. He sees the rotten boards, the outdated wiring. He sees a liability. He's like his father that way, practical. She said the word not with condemnation, but with a quiet sadness. He thinks he's freeing you from a burden. He's erasing a piece of us, Maya countered, her voice thick. That night, over bowls of marinara and crusty bread from Mr. Chen's, Daniel arrived. He let himself in, filling the small kitchen with his anxious energy. At 35, he was all clean lines and efficient movement, a successful financial planner from Boston. "Maya, you're not answering your phone," he kissed Rosa's cheek. "Nana." "Sit, Daniel," Rosa said. "Eat. The sauce will cure most ills, but not sibling blindness." Daniel remained standing, arms crossed. "Look, Maya, I'm sorry you're upset, but you have to see sense. That place is a catastrophe waiting to happen. The roof is one nor'easter from collapse. The taxes alone are a sinkhole. I got us a clean offer, $250,000, more than it's worth. We can split it, put it towards something real. A down payment for you, maybe." Maya stared at her bowl, the vibrant red sauce suddenly looking like a wound. "You didn't ask. You would have said no." "Of course I would have said no. It wasn't just yours to sell." Their voices climbed, bouncing off the cheerful yellow kitchen walls. Rosa let them go, sipping her tea, an island of calm in the familial squall. The argument was the same they'd had for years, just louder, more final. Daniel saw assets and liabilities. Maya saw ghosts and anchors. Finally, Rosa set her cup down with a definitive click. "Enough. The house is sold, the papers are signed, what's done is done. But you," she looked at Daniel, "will give your sister the buyer's information. And you," her gaze shifted to Maya, "will go and see this man tomorrow. Not to fight, to bear witness, to close the circle properly. Then you both will come here for dinner on Sunday. No arguments." The developer's office was in a sleek glass building in the new waterfront district. His name was Corbin, and he was all polished smiles and confident handshakes. He offered Maya coffee in a porcelain cup. "Your brother was very reasonable," Corbin said, spreading blueprints on his desk. "We're very excited. The Sea Crest Residences, high-end condominiums, a private marina. We're finally bringing Port Haven into the 21st century." Maya's eyes skimmed the plans. The rendering showed a glass and steel structure where the gray cottage stood. It was monstrously out of place. "You know," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "my grandfather loved that land. He knew every tide pool, every current." Corbin's smile didn't waver. "Sentiment is a powerful thing, but progress waits for no one. We actually just got the final geotechnical and survey reports." He slid a thick folder across the desk. "Standard due diligence. It's all very dry." Maya, out of a vague sense of obligation, opened the folder. Her eyes, trained as an archivist, skimmed over soil composition charts and water table analyses. Then, a page near the back caught her eye. It was a photocopy of a much older document, a land survey from 1910, attached as a historical reference. The boundaries were outlined in shaky ink, and in the margin, in different handwriting, was a small inked notation. Per agreement with J. Henley, parcel line extends to include tidelands and sandbar, the knoll, as defined per 1987 nautical chart. The knoll. Grandad Arthur had a name for the long, curved sandbar that appeared at low tide, a quarter-mile out, like a sliver of moon. He'd called it his private island, taking the grandkids out there for picnics when the water was shallow enough to wade. It shot electric tingle down her spine. "This tideland notation, the sandbar, is that included in your purchase?" Corbin waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, that's just a historical quirk. Tidelands are generally state-owned. Our interest is the upland property. That sandbar is irrelevant." Irrelevant. The word hung in the air. Maya thanked him, her mind whirring, and left. She didn't go home. She went straight to the Port Haven Historical Society, a dusty, single-room archive above the post office. Miss Letty, the nonagenarian volunteer, knew Rosa and Arthur. She let Maya in without question. For hours, Maya sifted through deed books, her fingers blackening with old paper dust. She cross-referenced the 1910 survey with the 1987 nautical chart and with Arthur's own property deed from 1959. The trail was complicated, a labyrinth of old fishermen's agreements and forgotten boundaries, but a picture began to emerge, a picture her practical, forward-looking brother had never thought to examine. A picture her sentimental, history-loving grandfather might have known about but never considered monetarily valuable. Arthur's deed didn't just include the cottage on its scrubby acre. Through a chain of convoluted, century-old agreements, it appeared to grant him rights, potentially exclusive rights, to develop the tidelands and that specific sandbar, the Knoll. And the sandbar, according to a modern coastal survey she found buried in the town files, was not an insignificant sliver. It was a stable, crescent-shaped formation of over 40 acres, accessible by a naturally deep channel, perfect for a marina. Or, as the realization dawned on her with dizzying force, the centerpiece of a massive 40-acre waterfront resort. The worthless beach house wasn't the asset. It was the key to the real fortune lying just offshore. Maya sat back in the creaking wooden chair, the weight of it all pressing down on her. $40 million? More? It was an absurd, life-altering number. She thought of Daniel, so proud of his $250,000 deal. She thought of Corbin's smug smile. A hot bolt of vindication shot through her. She could storm back in, wave the papers, declare the sale null and void. She could claim it all. But then she thought of Nana Rosa's face last night, watching them fight. She thought of Granddad Arthur, who'd valued a perfect clam over a perfect dollar. She thought of the brother, who, however misguidedly, thought he was saving her from a burden. She took photocopies of everything, her hands trembling. She didn't go to a lawyer, she went to the beach. Sunday dinner was a sacred tradition in Rosa's house. The table was laid with the good linen, the china with the tiny blue flowers. A pot roast, Daniel's favorite, simmered in the oven, filling the house with the smell of thyme and caramelized onions. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Daniel arrived first, bearing a bottle of wine and a defensive posture. Maya arrived minutes later, the salt wind still in her hair. They ate in near silence, the only sounds the clink of cutlery and Rosa's gentle prompts about the food. Finally, as Rosa served her famous apple pie, Daniel could bear it no longer. "All right, Maya, out with it. You've been a ghost for 2 days. Did you see Corbin?" "I did," said Maya, taking a slow sip of water. And he's very proud of his condominiums." Daniel sighed in exasperation. "Can we please just move past this? The money will be in our accounts by Friday." Maya reached into her bag and pulled out the folded photocopies. She slid them across the table, next to his pie plate. "Before you move past it, you should see what you sold." Frowning, Daniel wiped his mouth and opened the papers. His eyes scanned the lines, the old deeds, the modern survey, the notes Maya had neatly compiled linking it all together. His face went from annoyed to confused to pale with dawning, horrific understanding. The color drained from his face completely. He looked up at her, his eyes wide with shock. This can't be right. It's right," said Maya quietly. "Granddad didn't just own a soggy plot. He owned the development rights to the tideland and the knoll. That sandbar is 40 stable acres, Daniel, with deep water access. Corbin's Sea Crest residences are just the foot in the door. The real project, the $40 million resort, is the sandbar. You sold him the key for pennies." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Daniel stared at the papers as if they were written in a foreign language. His hands shook. He looked utterly shattered, not by the money, but by the magnitude of his mistake. He, the practical one, the financial expert, had committed a catastrophic error of judgment. He had failed. "Oh, my boy," Rosa whispered, her hand going to her heart. I'll call the lawyer first thing," Daniel stammered, his voice hollow. "We'll sue. We'll stop the sale. This is fraudulent. He must have known." "Corbin didn't know," Maya interrupted. "He was blind as you were. He saw an old cottage. You saw a liability. He saw a shiny new building. Neither of you saw what was really there." "What are you saying?" Daniel asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "We have to fight this." Maya looked at her grandmother. Rosa gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "I've thought about nothing else for 2 days," Maya said, her voice gaining strength. "I thought about lawsuits. I thought about revenge. I thought about being incredibly, stupidly rich." She paused, looking at her brother's anguished face. "But mostly, I thought about Granddad taking us out to the Knoll for picnics. I thought about you building that sandcastle, declaring yourself king. I thought about this family." She took a deep breath. "We're not going to sue, Daniel." "What? Are you insane?" "We're going to call Mr. Corbin tomorrow, together, and we're going to tell him what we found. And then we're going to make a new deal." Daniel stared at her, utterly lost. "We're not developers," Maya said. "We don't want a resort. But Port Haven could use a smart, thoughtful development. A marina that doesn't wreck the ecosystem, a public boardwalk, maybe an education center about the coastal wetlands. Something that honors the place instead of exploiting it." She leaned forward. "We use our leverage, our joint leverage, not to break his deal, but to reshape it. We trade exclusive development rights for a seat at the table, for a trust fund administered by us that funds the preservation of the North Shore forever, for a guarantee that the beach house isn't just bulldozed. Maybe it becomes the education center. Maybe it just stands, fixed up, as a reminder." She looked from her brother's stunned face to Rosa's, which was now glowing with a profound, tearful pride. "We do it together," Maya said, her final words soft but clear. Daniel dropped his head into his hands. His shoulders shook. When he looked up, his eyes were red, not with anger, but with a release, the release of a burden he had carried, the burden of being the only one who had to be right, to be practical, to be in control. "I sold your birthright," he choked out. "No," Maya said, reaching across the table and covering his hand with hers. It was the first kind touch they'd shared in years. "You sold a beach house. We found our inheritance." Rosa finally spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "Your grandfather," she said, "always said that the best things in life are not held in fists, but in open hands, that the tide goes out, but it always comes back, bringing something new. Now," she said, wiping a tear from her cheek with the corner of her apron, "eat your pie, it's still warm, and then you have a phone call to plan." Outside, the full moon rose over the Atlantic, painting a silver path on the water that led all the way to the dark sliver of the Knoll. In the warm, yellow kitchen, surrounded by the smells of rosemary, apple, and shared history, the fractured pieces of a family began, slowly, to knit themselves back together. Not as they were, but as they could be, stronger, wiser, connected not just by blood or by deed, but by a shared purpose, and by the timeless, patient rhythm of the coming and going of the tides.